Hi, good Erev Shabbos. It's Shabbos Parshas Kisisa. It's a Shabbos like a sisa that has its ups and downs. It's a Shabbos that we read about the sin of the golden calf. It's also the Shabbos that we read about obtaining the forgiveness for that and forgiveness for any future things that we do wrong as well. How to appeal to Hashem's mercy. It's a Shabbos that's known as Parshas Para, where we read about the red heifer, and concomitant with that, the idea of ritual purity, because we need to get ready for bringing our Korban Pesach, please God, to Yerushalayim, and it takes about a week to go through the purification process. And so the Shabbos before the month of Nisan starts, it's an historical tradition to read about the red cow, the red heifer, whose ashes would supply the necessary purity for somebody that had come into contact with a corpse and could otherwise not come into the temple and could not bring their Korban Pesach. One of the questions that comes up in this week's portion, aside from the question, the elephant in the room, so to speak, of how could the Jews do this? How could they be unfaithful to God? 40 days previously, they stood under the chuppah of Mount Sinai with Hashem, and here they are involving themselves with a golden calf. It just doesn't make sense. But leaving that question to the side for the moment, why a calf? I mean, a lion, a horse, or maybe a sheep. Sheep was the familiar animal deity of the Egyptians. I mean, it just doesn't seem. Why a calf? So there's a midrashic answer, and there is a development of that answer that I'd like to share with you this evening. The midrashic answer apparently goes back to a little boy by the name of Micha, who was a person that had been saved by Moshe Rabbeinu from death, a Jewish boy, and sort of followed him wherever Moshe went. Little Micha went running after him to see what he was doing. And when it came time to leave Egypt, and everybody was busy getting the gold and silver from their neighbors and they're borrowing their dresses and stuff like that, Moshe Rabbeinu was busy doing something totally different. He was trying to reclaim the coffin with the bones of Joseph in it, because Joseph had made the Jewish people swear that we would take him with us when we left. And after some questioning and searching, he found out that the Egyptians, well aware of this oath that had been placed upon us, had hidden the coffin of Joseph at the bottom of the Nile. And so what Moshe did was he took a piece of pottery, a shard of pottery. He wrote on it something to the effect of Alei Shor. In Hebrew means arise, O ox. Ox is a reference to Joseph. It's the way he's referred to by his father in the blessings that are bestowed upon him before he passed away. And he threw this piece of pottery down into the water, and it landed on top of the coffin of Joseph, which then began to rise to the surface, at which point Moshe dragged it onto the shore and put it on his shoulder and took off with it. This little boy Micha apparently noticed this whole procedure, and he went and retrieved a little piece of pottery that had these magic words Alei Shor on them, and he held on to it. When some number of weeks later, in the middle of Tammuz, when the Jewish people were anxiously awaiting Moshe's return, and bit of a misunderstanding, he was coming down the next morning, but they were expecting him that afternoon, and that's when they made their demands to have some kind of concrete object that would take the place of Moshe Rabbeinu and secure them going forward. And they took the gold out of their own ears and they threw it into a fire. And so what this little boy Micha did at that point is he took this little chip that he had, this supernatural powered chip that had made the coffin of Joseph rise, because it said "Ale Shor," arise, O ox, on it, and he threw this into the fire as well. And apparently, this is why, when the gold formed into the shape of a calf, not a full-blown cow, but a calf at least, but that it was actually virtually alive. It wasn't robotic. It wasn't just a statue. It was something that could move about and could make noises, and people felt that it was something really, really special. So that's a bit of background on the one side. The Netziv, Reb Neftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, was Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva in Volozhin until the end of the 19th century, suggests a different answer to the question of why a calf. I'm indebted to a colleague, Rabbi Yaakov Lewin, who shared this answer with me. He says, first you got to understand the mindset of these Jews. They're in the desert, they're in the Midbar, they're in the wilderness. They feel abandoned by their leadership, and they're afraid and they're worried, and they haven't been out of slavery for that long yet. And they must have had thoughts of poverty and starvation and where's my next meal going to come from? And to alleviate those fears, they decided to create something tangible that would provide for their needs. So the Netziv, Rabbi Berlin, explains that the Jews wished to produce an object which would serve as the bulwark of consistent and secure parnasa. They chose a calf because Ezekiel indicates in his prophecy of the divine throne that there were one of the four images to be found on the throne is that of a shor. A shor is really an ox. And Kabbalists apparently say that there is an association between the image of an ox and parnasa, income. Still, what's so bad about that? We're living in difficult times. Who doesn't want to try to do something to make sure that they can embetter their financial situation? Well, the problem was, as the Midrash goes on to describe what was being served during this feast that they had while this celebration over this golden calf was taking place, it wasn't beer and biltong. And it was man. Man, the same man which fell every day from God, which had supplied them for food from a month into their journeys until now. And if the Jews had actually opened up their eyes and realized that they were directly benefiting from the hand of God on a daily basis, they wouldn't have worried about parnasa. They wouldn't have worried about where's my next meal going to come from, what am I going to do for money, for livelihood, because they would have seen that everything was right there in the palm of their hands. It was coming directly from Hashem. So, part of the many facets of wrongdoing, of wrongness about the Chet HaEgel, about the sin of the golden calf, is the disappointment that the Jews had a solution to their problem. They had a solution from Hashem, but they disregarded it. Not necessarily that they were willfully doing so, but nevertheless, unthinkingly, they disregarded God and didn't turn to Him directly for sustenance. And in difficult times, many of us seem to have turned to various measures which we would never have expected 2 years ago, in an effort to obtain any kind of economic assurance or security. And you can't really judge anybody for their level of desperation because it's a very much a personal thing. But let's take a lesson from the Egel HaZahav. Let's take a lesson that when times are tough, first place to look, the first address we go to is to Hashem, to God for guidance, for support, and for sustenance. We put our faith in Him. And if we do that, we'll find that the solution to our problems is indeed to be found in the palm of our hands. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.